Hello.
Hello.
I'm Kimberly.
I'm Michael.
And welcome to Real Takes.
And Movie Breaks.
And today we are reviewing the film Gladiator. The first Gladiator.
The real Gladiator.
For our Retro View segment where we review older films, hidden gems, and timeless classics. I just saw Gladiator for the first time in 2024. Before watching Gladiator 2, I wanted to watch Gladiator 1. And I told him from the beginning, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't like watching violence.
And you didn't really catch on to it until like halfway through, right?
Yeah, it took me about an hour to really get into it.
Why do you think?
I think that it's a film that's so different from this world. It's hard for me, an American female in 2024 to relate to this world. But after an hour, I was suddenly so hooked and so enthralled and so emotionally invested that I had to find out what happened. And I think it was because of the writing, the directing, and of course the performances. Russell Crowe, he exudes this natural charisma that you just can't help but want to watch. The other actors in this, Joaquin Phoenix was phenomenal. Also, I think what really, really hooked me was the character of Marcus Aurelius. Once he talks about the philosophy, his life philosophy, you start to understand the deeper meaning right away and the reason all this violence is happening. And so I think demonstrating that deeper philosophy and the scene between Joaquin Phoenix's character and that actor that played Marcus Aurelius, that scene alone was just so well done.
When he kills him?
Yes, that scene alone was just so well done, and it really started to pull me into that world where a human being could actually murder their father because of a power-hungry reason. So that really, it sort of shocked me into the world. And I think after that moment, I started to really become increasingly invested after there.
So
it was like a slow progression.
You realize that the characters are all making decisions and they're all doing things based on certain values they have, certain ambitions, certain things that are driving them. Yes. And those decisions are in conflict with one another.
Yes.
And because of that, we have a real battle of good versus evil.
Right. And I understood the character's motivation. So once I understood what was driving the character, and I appreciated the deeper themes of family, loyalty, what it means to be honorable in a world like this. Parts of it were hard to watch just because I don't like violence. But I think the thing that also got me was acknowledging the reality of this is how it really was back then. And
Maximus says it in the scene with Marcus Aurelius. He says, I've seen much of the rest of the world. It's brutal, cruel, and dark, and Rome is the light. And then Marcus says, but you've never been there. You don't know what it has become. Every scene has so much wonderful philosophy and poetry intermixed into the action. Mm-hmm. So there's this great balance of talkiness, and there isn't that much of it. Mm-hmm. There's a little, like the gladiator scenes are not that long, and they're not really what dominate the movie. What dominates the movie are these conversations that go on for, like, there's Marcus Aurelius and the daughter, and him and Maximus and Commodus and Commodus and his sister and the senators and everything and Maximus and the slave owner guy who's really great.
Mm-hmm. I love the relationship between Maximus and his friend that he makes when they talk about
that guy.
I don't know what that actor's name is, but his friend, and they talk about how maybe, like, Maximus is saying he believes he'll meet his family again, he'll be reunited with his family, and his friend says, but not yet. And because they're such great actors and they're really listening to each other, the relationships are believable. And once I started to realize that this is a cautionary tale about how crazy violent cultures are and how crazy it is to embrace violence, I appreciate the cautionary tale because I don't like violence. And I think my favorite moment in this movie was, and I realize now that this is like an iconic moment that people quote, but I get it because when Russell Crowe's character, Maximus, is like, "Are you not entertained?" He's not only asking the characters of the movie, it felt like he was asking me as an audience member, "Are you not entertained? Like, are you not entertained by this violence?"
It's subverting the violence of itself, and he doesn't really care about the violence.
Yeah.
In the very first scene of the movie, he's looking at a bird. The opening shot of the film, he's thinking about wheat and running his hands through the wheat, and then he sees a bird, and he's like focused on the bird, and then we see him look at the barbarians in the forest, and then we see like, oh yeah, I have to be the general now, and then he goes and he's this general that they all love. And he gives this great speech at the beginning where he's like, "What we do in life echoes in eternity." And he says the whole thing about elite. He's like, if you find you're riding in green fields, you're already dead. So don't worry, don't be troubled. And it's this great, like, it's like almost precisely like what that culture was about, and being in the moment, and being and fighting as one for the group, for the greater group. It was this Rome was sort of this idea, or Marcus Aurelius says it was a dream of something greater. It's civilization out of the depths of the dark, cruel, brutal world. And at the that first battle, you kind of think like, oh, it's it's another war movie or whatever. But after the battle, he goes over and he kind of grabs his sword off the tree, and you kind of see that he's just done with it all. He doesn't want to be. He even says to Richard Harris, who plays Marcus Aurelius, incredibly, for like the brief couple minutes he's in the movie.
I wish I could have seen him in the movie more.
And he's like, "You've proved your valor yet again." And then he's like, "Well, there's no one left to fight." And then Marcus, "Well, there's always someone left to fight." And it's a just incredible line because it's so true. It's true in life and every. This movie reminded me of Shawshank Redemption, and a lot of the themes. It was like the same sort of rhythms of it, and then the whole thing of him, it's the character of Maximus is it's almost an otherworldly archetype that he's playing, almost like a Beowulf or something that's from literature, the Odyssey, Shakespeare, stuff that is like of legend. But Russell Crowe plays him with a humanity and an insecurity, and
he's very. You can see the humility in him. It's not like he's trying to show off. He's not trying to you see him as like a real human being, like a fully developed human being, but he's not precious about it either.
At one moment is he's so talented as an actor that he can play this kind of role, and he can play this kind of role not just as a badass, but as a guy that's kind of unsure but has this sort of will, and he's going to persevere, and he also has a confidence about his ability to fight or whatever. But at the same time, he knows what he's up against. And then you have this incredible performance by Joaquin Phoenix, who's kind of out to prove himself as a younger actor, and he does more than you could have imagined.
And I love Joaquin Phoenix and everything I see him do, but this is my favorite role I've seen him play because he brought so much complexity and so much dimension. You actually felt bad for him sometimes. Sometimes you hated him, but sometimes you cared about him, and sometimes you really felt for him. And so it was just this incredible layered performance that
when Marcus Aurelius says, "My powers will go to Maximus," and you see the look on Joaquin when he's like, you see him is teary-eyed, like he looks like a little boy who just got his PlayStation taken away. You see, and you do understand the driving, like, he wants to make his father proud. Like, that scene with him and the statue. He wants his father's love.
Is so dramatic, but it's so well done. Like,
and then the sister, the one, the I can't remember her name. So she has a couple scenes with Joaquin.
Yeah.
And she has a couple scenes with Russell Crowe. And she has a scene with Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
I feel like she's a good actress. I feel like they make her even better in the scenes where she's with them, especially the scenes with Russell Crowe. You see her in that one scene where she says, I've been alone my whole life, except with you. You actually see her break into a place of real vulnerability. This woman of power and of regalness that she has the whole film. She breaks that in that moment. It's incredible. And then we get to this final fight scene where they have this whole coup that they're going to plan against Commodus. It fails because he's smart is the thing. These are characters that make good decisions, and they try to beat each other, and then they get bested, and then he has to fight him in front of the crowd. And Maximus, we didn't even talk about the scene where he's like, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, like that whole confrontation where he reveals to Commodus that he's still alive. He's the Spaniard, the famous gladiator. He's won the crowd, which is a really interesting idea. It's more important to win the crowd than to have power.
And than to have to stand for something real.
Yeah.
All he cares about is winning favoritism.
Because Commodus is like Caesar, but he knows that Maximus will be more remembered than he will.
He just cares about his reputation versus morals or ethics or standing for something beyond yourself. He just wants attention and wants to be recognized because he didn't feel recognized by his father, kind of thing.
And I gotta say, as I was watching this, I was reminded of present day. I was reminded of situations that exist in today, and it was 100% relevant.
Yeah,
and you could relate it to things we see in the modern ethos. And so I was thinking to myself, this is unbelievable storytelling.
Yeah, because the powers that be, sometimes I question what's more important to them.
The people,
popularity, like getting a position of power, or do they actually care about the American dream and what it really stands for?
Or what are, like, who are we? What are we moving towards? What is the greater philosophy in all
What's
of this?
What's the point of all of this? What's the point of having a position of power?
And and the corruption and the things that have been crippled, and the Senate, and they're quibbling and betraying, backstabbing each other, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and this was made 24 years ago.
24 years ago,
and it's still it felt relevant.
And then you get to that final fight scene, and they have Maximus and Commodus have this amazing scene where he's like tied up, and then he's like, I guess I'm going to fight you now, and he's like, you're going to fight me. You can actually see Russell Crowe like, what? You're gonna fight me? No, you're not. You're too scared. You can't win.
Yeah.
And then he stabs him in the heart.
It's so well written because
he kisses him. Stabs him in the heart.
He literally says, you and I aren't that different. And in some ways, he's kind of right. And then he stabs him in the back, figuratively and literally stabbing him in the back.
Like, conceal the wound, and then they fight, and then you have the whole. I love the visions of Elysium that they do, and I love that music with the woman like. So the musical scoring
is probably one of my favorite parts of this film, and I unknowingly was playing some of the music.
You play it in your yoga classes. When I
teach my yoga classes, I have this Pandora station, and this music comes on because the music. It's very emotionally moving, and so I love the scoring of this film. It's just really moving. It makes you feel like there's something spiritual happening, and the way Russell Crowe played the character, the way he delicately picked up the dirt from the earth,
so delicate.
You feel like there's something spiritual happening.
I think he does it even though he's stabbed. Does he do it at the end?
I think he does.
He still does. He still does the dirt thing.
Because it grounds him to the earth and it connects him to something more than himself. That's how I interpreted it anyway.
And then when Joaquin's trying to take him out, but he's sort of unsure because he's fighting a wounded animal. And then Maximus has this whole like it's great suspense too at the end because Maximus is like kind of like hallucinating or going into heaven basically, but he still has to fight the guy. And then it's this great sort of little wrestling match at the end with the knife or whatever. It's unbelievable.
And he sacrifices himself for the greater good of all. And so it's, he's like a martyr. And so it's very poetic, tragic, but poetic.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
He kills Commodus. If you notice, the crowd doesn't respond at all. So that's like great directing. Because you could have had the crowd like cheer, but that would have been wrong.
Yeah.
They are silent.
Yeah.
And then we see him just sort of fall. But at the very last moment, while he's kind of in between heaven and life, he's like, these are the real wishes of the real emperor Marcus Aurelius. And he's like talking about we're going to reinstate the senators, and there's a dream that was right. And then he falls over, so he gets the job done. It's incredible.
Yeah.
5 out of 5 for me. My first 5 out of 5 on this channel. Yeah.
I would give it a 4 out of 5 myself. But yes, I mean, that's still a very high rating, and I'm a harsh critic. So if you haven't seen it, chances are you have seen it if you're watching this review. But if you have seen it, I'd love to know your thoughts. Let us know what you think about the film. And especially if you've seen the newer film, let us know how you feel this film compares to our newer film. We're going to share our review of Gladiator 2 in the link in this description. So check that out. And if there are any other retro views, any other older films you'd love us to watch and review for nostalgic purposes, let us know, and we'd be happy to watch some older films and review them for you on this segment.
We will watch them.
Yes, and in the meantime, stay real.
Have a good day.